For millennia, art and justice have worked hand in hand. Yes, your creative gift blesses the heart of God and is how you reflect His image. Yet, His desire is that it would not only minister to Him, but also live on in its service. That it would help bring light to darkness and hope to others. Art and creativity communicate to all people in a heart language each understands. Others, neighbors, rich and poor, princesses and prisoners, the high and mighty and the down and out. To use our creative power in service of others is a perfect picture of kingdom come. It is the Father's desire that this world is filled with beauty and freedom, expression and emancipation. Your creative gifts come fully alive when they bless God and build His kingdom. When you make this world a little more like He originally intended it. Our world needs creators who will look beyond themselves, women and men who will create not because they have a great idea, but because they have a selfless heart. And this is how the kingdom of God comes into clearer view. True art births peace and justice. The need may indeed be great, but so is your potential. The only question you need answer is, how long will you wait till you start?
If you're looking for a way to define creativity, this is perhaps the place to start. It's the ability to connect two items that wouldn't previously fit together. And it's not just about visual wizardry or a remarkable vocabulary, but simply about making connections. That is the true test of creativity. Can you connect two things that seemingly have nothing in common? Now let's try together maybe with a little bit of an exercise. What happens when you get waffles, athletes running, you get sneakers? Or when you've got a music score, a computer, you get last night's opener. And what about when you get scriptures and vegetables? You get Veggie Tales. But what could we do when it comes to our own creativity? Could you connect international aid with the fight to end? You could get international aid and stationery, combine them together. And someone did. UNICEF and Qantas, they took the boring old envelope, and with that were able to raise over $25 million. How about watches and wells, or photography and dignity? How about a supermarket behemoth and the fight to end global poverty? Today, this is what we're going to explore in this session. What can happen when creative purpose and a heart for others collide? What can happen when your creative best is devoted to the service of God and His children? And what can happen when what you do becomes about others?
Daniel and Justine are like a lot of other married couples. Married, parents to a beautiful baby boy named Jed, but they also run one of the largest Australasia social enterprise movements, the Thankyou Co. Love your soaps, by the way. With 55 products in over 5,000 outlets in multiple countries, and after having raised over $6 million to help end global poverty, you'd say they're doing quite a lot. Please help me in welcoming Dania and Justine Flynn.
And let's also welcome our amazing stage crew who are doing the best job ever. This is Daniel, this is Justine. Guys, nice to see you.
Thank you for having us.
Good to be here.
You are very welcome. It's great to be here with you together. Now, before we get started, we're missing the most important member of the party. I will say that our rehearsal was hijacked by your 4-year-old Jed, who was very comfortable with A, sitting right here, and B, had lots of things to say into the microphone.
Yeah.
You have got a very special little boy there.
Yes, we do. He's very extroverted.
You've been coming here for since this conference started, right? Like you were here for the first 2 and then this is your 3rd one and here we are today. So what's it feel like kind of having been there and now being here?
It's, we love these moments because in worship, in hearing other people's stories, it inspires you to go further and to push further. And that's one of my favorite songs we just played. So thank you, whoever lined that up.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Well, let's get a bit into your story as well. You guys come from very different places. Justine, you are from far north Queensland.
Yes.
And you made it out. Congratulations. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing and just a few moments from your childhood.
Sure. So I grew up near the beach, which was beautiful, very tropical place. But a few moments for me that I think led me to, what we're doing today. I think for me it started when I was 12. I was sitting on the floor looking up at Miss Morrison as she was sharing with me about encounters that she's had visiting developing countries. And I knew for myself that I needed to go and see this for myself.
When you were 12?
When I was 12, yeah.
Cool. When I was 12, I just wanted to play with Transformers. So you were already much further ahead of the curve.
Transformers are cool too.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
my son's
that,
very into Transformers.
Yeah, he's 4 and I was 12, so...
Yeah. I love Transformers as well. But I knew for myself I needed to, go and see it for myself. And when my teacher actually moved to Indonesia and I went to go see her, my mum made me raise every cent myself. So I had to do car washes, sausage sizzles, pie drives, clothes swapping parties. We made lemingtons on the kitchen bench. Then next minute I'm on the aeroplane and I'm encountering poverty for the first time, and I was fully immersed. And it was one of those moments for me where I could see what it was like to be in extreme poverty. But then at the other side, I could see the joy people found when they didn't have nothing as well. And so when I came home to Mackay, I'm sitting on my bed, looking at all the stuff a 14-year-old has, I realised in that moment, do I need all this stuff, And I remember making a vow to God that when I grew up, whatever it was that I, did when I grew up, I wanted to be able to help people in need. And yeah, the rest is history. And
meanwhile, down in Victoria, tell us a bit about you, Daniel.
Well, I was the kid running around the schoolyard kind of selling anything. Like gobstoppers when they were in, or pet yabbies, which on reflection feels quite cruel. And I feel bad, but just selling stuff to try and make money, not to visit developing countries, but I'm really inspired by that. And that was me.
And so you make the migration down, like all good North Queenslanders do, down, and you make it all the way to Melbourne. You guys meet, and it's not a case of love at first sight so much as it is purpose at first sight. Hey, you guys instantly realize, not instantly, but you realize there's something there. Tell us a bit about that and how kind of Thankyou came to be.
I think, we started this literally a month into dating, which we do not recommend, but...
do not recommend.
Do this. But
it was great.
It did work out well. But we started with, it was an idea. I had this moment where I was sitting in front of my computer, I'm researching for a university assignment, and God hits me. I'm watching stories of kids who didn't have access to clean water. And I remember sitting there crying, and I'm thinking, this isn't normal for me. In context, I've sponsored a child, so I thought I'd done my bit. And I'm sitting there crying, moved, thinking, this is so wrong. Kids losing brothers and sisters to waterborne disease, and if that was me, I would have lost my sisters, and how do I even comprehend that as a 19-year-old? And I remember just sharing with Justine, the issues, and she's nodding because she grew up seeing it firsthand, and then we talked about consumer product. We spend so much money on stuff, and imagine if we could combine these two extremes, and that was the idea.
So you started Thankyou, and I'm sure it was just, you started it and it was really easy and there were no problems and it's just onwards and upwards from there, right?
Pretty much an overnight success.
Yeah, overnight success.
10 years in the making.
10 years in the making, like every overnight success. Some of those challenges along the way, tell us about how you combated those, because we've talked, there is enough things that have knocked you down, but you've kept getting back up. How? How have you guys overcome those early challenges when you're first starting out with your first orders and early suppliers, and how did you have the resolve to keep going even when it didn't look like it was going to work?
I think one of the things for us is knowing our why, and having that, we had that conviction in our heart that we knew that this is what we had to do. Daniel had an encounter, I don't know if you wanted to share about the verse.
Moments, like that is so important, because we got hit down so many times. That moment I was in church, and this isn't good, but I wasn't listening to the person up the front. I'm at the back of the service kind of arguing with God about this calling, I think, to this water thing. Mm-hmm. We needed hundreds of thousands of dollars to launch. Everything wasn't working when we started. And so, God, if this is you, I need a sign. And I opened my Bible, it was next to me. And I flip it over, and without flipping the page either way, I looked down and I saw a verse I hadn't read before.
The world famous pick and flick.
Yeah, yes. Now, this does not always work, but in this moment, I open it and I look down and I read a scripture I'd never read before in Isaiah 41, verse 17. And it said, "The poor and needy search for water, yet find none. Their tongues are parched with thirst, but I, Lord God, have heard their cry, and I'll turn the deserts into springs and the valleys into pools." And it's one of the many moments we've had.
Yeah, it was like, in the beginning we kept getting knockbacks, and the first knockback we hadn't really even made it to shelf yet, and we knew that along the journey our vision that we had wasn't just to provide a community with access to safe water or a few hundred people, but to us it was hundreds of thousands and hopefully one day millions of people being able to receive access to safe water. And that's what got us going, that we weren't there what we had envisioned just yet.
And so from there, it's continued to grow and expand. I think we were going to put like some of the products that you guys have on this little table, but we ran out of room on the table, so we still got a bigger table. We have a photo with like a few of the things. That's the only way we could kind of pull it all together. The story has continued to grow and expand, which is amazing. Tell me about how your faith has grown as the company has grown. Tell me about what it means for you guys to lean into God in the middle of what is a thriving yet challenging kind of enterprise.
I reckon we've approached this like we never knew what we were doing, which was the best thing we had. That kind of that faith, that childlike thinking. But then we also tried to do things the way everyone else did them. I remember we tried to approach normal really big ad agencies to kind of help us launch. And I was really convinced that was a good idea. And then we got back, and it was actually, the work that came back was like, that's not Thankyou, that's not our heart. And I remember actually one meeting we walked out, and like you said something, you got to share that bit.
It was a process. I remember we were absolutely gutted that we'd spent all this time trying to find the best creative we could, because we've got this quote that we stand by from Martin Luther King Jr., who says that all labour that exists to uplift humanity is important and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence. And so for us, back in the day when we started doing something for charity was sort of like second rate, second best, like just give you leftovers. But for us, we knew it was important, that people who exist to serve is important, and we have to give our absolute best. And so when we came away meeting with the top creatives around the country, we were just gutted that there was a disconnect and that we weren't there yet. And I had this just idea drop in my heart, which was, where does your help come from? And it was this idea of, oh wow, our help comes from the creator of heaven and of earth. And we just, sang that song just before 1 billion, like the creator of that. And we can tap in and we can visit and we can have walks on the beach and we can spend the whole day with such an incredible mentor. And that for us was a moment that drew us to a place of going, why do we do things the way they've always been done before? And can we challenge the status quo and challenge the way that things have been done before?
And so you used the word calling before, which is interesting. Can we just unpack that a bit? You operate in a space that is very kind of quote unquote secular, with a mindset that is very kind of sacred. Like, you guys see this as your calling, as your mission. So talk about how your faith has has really led you guys to that place where you don't see what you're doing as a business, but as your calling as individuals and as a family?
Yeah, I grew up in church hearing, I know the plans that I have for you, says the Lord. And I was always praying, like, what's the plan for me? And I had boxes, like, it's like ministry or business. It was like the two separate boxes. And many people have gone on this journey, but I think we went on the journey of like mission and the calling. It's unique for each of us. And for us, it's like ministry, but it's in a completely different format and it's impacting lives. And I think that has at times been a wrestle. Yeah. What box do we fit in? Until one day we walked away from the whole concept of boxes and just going, God, we live for you and we'll just keep walking this out. And it's been a great journey.
Come on. You want to add anything to that?
I think also calling is sacrifice as well. And I think that's a different thing too. Like, it's knowing like what you're willing to sacrifice and it goes beyond sometimes what you gain in return. But then, as you know as well, most people in this room would know that you never ever lose by giving. And that's something that we've, always been, really strong on, is that to know that we will never ever lose by giving.
100%. And so you guys, like Chris said before, you co-founded this company, you are married, you have a kid. I'm sure that every day is just swings and roundabouts for you guys. So tell us a little bit about your journey working together, what you both bring to the table and how you've kind of found a way through that. Because there's a lot of people here who are working on things, ministries, organizations together, and it can be a wrestle, like you say.
I sometimes wish that we could say that we're quite different, but we're actually quite similar.
Really?
Yeah, so like, how there's usually couples that, one's really good with the details and, the small thing, and then another big picture, but we're both very big picture, spontaneous risk takers is actually what came up for us in a personality test.
Both of you?
Yeah, both
Together.
of us.
Oh man, we'll be praying for you.
Thank you.
Please pray.
But we need a lot of support in the details. We have an incredible team for that. Yeah.
I think where we are different, like there's similarities, but I think like Justine has this incredible gift of faith. Like I definitely have vision, we both have vision, but the gift of faith, we've seen that play out, faith and creativity. There was this one moment where I was, we're at home, I was washing the dishes, which I just want to point that out, but I was washing up and... And
you're dead.
And I'm in trouble. And I was angry because I was like, babe, this is over. Like we'd had an issue. We're about to do a massive launch with a retailer. This whole issue had popped up and our legal advice was we had to pull the launch. And I had been on the phone all day with them and they said it's an 8-week minimum turnaround to get this resolved. So I'm like, it's going to be 8 weeks and like we're meant to launch on Monday and this is like a Thursday. And
we had to cease trading immediately, didn't we? Across everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, and then this great woman of faith is like, well, I'm believing for a turnaround in the next 24 hours. I'm like, no, it's not that easy. Like, it's not like, I've talked to the lawyers and then 24 hours later, I was washing the dishes, point that out. And, but we had a complete turnaround and it was a miracle. But the amount of times that each of us have walked away from this, like almost handed each other our resignation letters, but then held on and backed each other in the secret, quiet places that has given us a confidence and a unity to take on things that others haven't in the industry has been incredibly powerful.
I love that. Anything you guys would say to people who are trying to find a way or struggling to connect their creativity and purpose? Any encouragement for those guys who are in that spot and they don't know where to start or it seems too hard to start?
We say blue sky days. Someone gave us this advice many years ago. He was a businessman. He ran a whole stack of businesses, incredibly busy. And he said he takes one day a week out to go on blue sky days. He didn't call them blue sky days. That's what we've called them. He just goes and spends time with God. For a whole day, and it can be incredibly hard.
He also has a jet ski and he goes to an island. Like, we'd all do that.
Yeah.
But for us, it's been really good. And, you know, that's where we've had a lot of our downloads. And it's really, it is a sacrifice to do that when you've got 100 million things you have to do, when you've got responsibilities left, right, and centre. But having that day out to actually sit and or walk or, you know, go out into nature or whatever it is that you do that connects you with God or the Creator, to have those downloads.
Yeah, and we don't have time to tell the story now, but you talked about the book, chapter 1, and that kind of came out of you spending like a weekend like praying and fasting and asking God what was next, and this kind of came to you. Not everyone can spend an entire day like on a jet ski on an island, though that would be nice, but like you say, every one of us can do something to connect with the one who actually is the ultimate creator. So like your previous story, like you might have talked to the lawyers, but you've been talking to the Lord, and I love that.
So good.
We're out of time. These guys are next level. Can you please join me in thanking and encouraging Daniel and Justine?